So this is a tricky one. This is a new kind of review I'm doing for my review series on my channel for the first time. Really freaking excited about it, and it could not be a better time to do this specific review. May the 4th be with you all. Happy Star Wars Day, everyone. But still, I've never done a review about this kind of subject in film before. So it's going to be tricky. I think I've come to close to perfection that I ever can when it comes to reviewing a film. I try to focus on the main stuff that make a film successful or that make a story work, a visual kind of story. However, TV is as close and still obviously in the same family as it can be to film. Very different to film. That's why even for a few years, I stopped watching TV shows. Not because they were bad or I got bored of them, I just simply wanted to focus more on what I loved, specifically big blockbuster films, or even just specifically films in general. Individual pieces of films, even if connected in sequels and franchises and series and prequels and all this, still you could review and rate each individual film as its own piece of art, as its own simple work. TV shows, on the other hand, are its own little beast. It's very different. The best way I can come to explain and describe a TV show is like reading a book. One giant book. Each chapter can have its own sense of quality and its own amount of work that's been put into it. But ultimately, all those chapters come together to decide what you feel about the book. But you might feel or have stronger feelings of joy or even just a better sense of quality to some chapters compared to others. So many TV shows have done it before. The best example that I can bring up in modern times is obviously Game of Thrones, that I will be reviewing soon. However, I think I've made a new rating system for TV shows that I've come to terms with and seem to be comfortable with right now. Maybe someone can question it and realize the faults in the future, but so far the best system I can come up with, I'm going to be rating shows per season. Not as a whole, because that'd just be too much, first off, work for me. Clearly, I'm not the best at schedules. This is actually the earliest I've ever done anything, so I'm going to really enjoy this for as much as I can. So I'm going to do it per season, and what better way to start the season per season reviews than focusing on the grand finale to possibly one of my favorite shows of all time, and possibly one of the greatest shows that has ever been blessed in the Star Wars universe. Yes, we are talking about Star Wars: The Clone Wars, Season 7. We made it after how many? This one was even longer than actually waiting for the sequel trilogy. Sequel trilogy was like, what, 4 or 5 years to wait for it to finally be complete? This one has been going since 2008. I know there's talks of possible new seasons. I've heard it. Every friend has told me, and I've seen the reports. But you know what? For me right now, if this is where it ends, it couldn't have had a better ending. But Clone Wars has a very different experience and personal meaning to me, because unlike many other shows that I've fallen in love with through the years, some of them being some that you probably noticed in the background there, I'm pointing at it, some in the background there for many years, this one was the first time I ever actually fell in love with the TV show, and actually, believe it or not, the true first time, as far as I remember. My memory sometimes goes back and forth on which one I got into, but my mind works with me today. I'm quite positive Clone Wars was generally the first time I actually got into Star Wars. Now, I still remember exactly the first piece of Star Wars media I watched back in the day when I was 5 years old, back in I believe 2007 or 2008, was Episode 5, The Empire Strikes Back. I watched it at an auntie's house while she was babysitting me. I think my mom was on some work trip. I decided one day, bored out of my mind, as a kid is, while eating my cereal, I thought, why the hell not? Let's watch this. Let's see what's going on. It was specifically, I don't remember the exact episode in Season 2. I just remember, believe it or not, I remember Jar Jar being a part of it, but he was barely involved in it, so it was one of the not so bad Jar Jar episodes. I think one of the good times Jar Jar was ever involved with anything in Star Wars. And the Senator Organa helping in this grand battle of the last remaining soldiers in a planet to help the Republic. Maybe you guys can tell me what episode that is. I don't remember for the life of me right now. All I can tell you is I'm quite sure it was in Season 2, but it was the first episode of Star Wars that I saw, of the Clone Wars I saw. I was hooked. I fell in love with that episode. I recorded it, I had DirecTV at the time, recorded it instantly once it was done, and I made sure I rewatched it every other day I could. I'd probably seen that episode itself a good 35 times. Possibly one of my favorite, still probably one of my personal favorite piece of Star Wars media. Ironically, Jar Jar's involved with that, I know. I have to live with it. You know what? Jar Jar, they managed to use him correctly. Fine. You win, Jar Jar. You win. You can leave now. Jesus Christ. I kept watching the show every other week. New episodes kept coming and coming and coming, and I was there for all of them. I soon started learning of this grand world of these Jedi Knights and these evil Sith Lords and this grand battle with this clone army to fight for the peace and stability of the Republic and all the systems with it, until it would all one day fall and create this grand epic conflict of good and evil and the very survival of good itself against the evil empire that I soon find out was that film I watched a few years ago. And it all would have never probably happened if it wasn't for the Clone Wars. So in a sense, I owe a lot of my love for Star Wars to the Clone Wars. If it wasn't for that, I don't know what I would have been with Star Wars. I don't know. It's actually funny. I used to play a lot with Legos. Yeah, we're doing this. Look at these sexy beasts. Look at this guy. Look, I used to make my own little Lego figures. Look, isn't he so cool? Oh my god, look, I was such a genius. Look, I use these, I think they were meant for like flowers for the Lego sets, but I would just use them, and I thought they fit perfect for the clone troopers. I don't know who the fuck this guy is. This is my personal rebel trooper that I used to make my own little stories when I was a kid. And what was cool with these is that like I didn't just like make my own stories with them. Whenever new episodes came out, I started doing this thing, it was in the morning, that I would grab my characters, my little clone troopers, and I would soon obviously make my mom buy me every set possible with the money we had at the time. And I would reenact every fucking episode I could. I reenacted that very first episode I ever saw so many times. I think I could, if I one day ever have to write a script out of it and reenact the whole thing for production, I feel like I can do it. I feel like I can remember not even the characters' names, but everything action they did and how the scenes went down and how the episode started and ended. I think I can do it all. That's what I would do. Am I a nerd for keeping these? Am I a fucking loser? Of course I am. Why do you think I do these? I don't know what happened specifically, but I got bored with the show. No, I lost interest with the show. The show never got boring for me. I lost interest. I kept watching the movies, but I just almost forgot about the show's existence. And I would not remember that show again and get back into it until I came back to the US and to California to find out that the show got canceled after Disney bought Star Wars. So I just thought for years the show that got me into it was finally over with an uneventful ending. I did get to see some of the season 6 episodes that were released on Netflix that I believe were the unreleased Ghost episodes. Incredible either way. I thought that was it. We would never see Clone Wars again. Big deal. I'll learn to live with it. Then 2019 happened. No, was it 2018 or 2019? Somewhere around 2018 or 2019 happened where we got the trailer for Clone Wars Season 7. Hashtag Clone Wars saved. I was there when that video dropped. I was there with all the fans freaking out. This was still when I know this was way after The Last Jedi, because I know this was still where the fan base was still divided. This was a pretty big deal to find out that one of the greatest shows that has ever been made with this franchise was finally coming back. Dave Filoni was back in the game. George Lucas was said to be helping out with it. A new animation is coming in, and they're finally going to end the story of what happened in the prequels in the very show itself. We were all excited. And then it finally came early this year. The Bad Batch came out. This is where we finally start with Season 7. Here's what I thought about the season. So it all comes to start with, like I said, Episode 1, The Bad Batch. And what was interesting is that I would realize soon, and one of my friends would call me out with it, is that obviously this season was actually quite interesting, which in the way that it was also, to help my point about what I feel about TV shows, it was kind of divided like if it was one giant book. Each one had specifically 3 chapters, and those individual episodes focused on that specific story or chapter that the season was focusing on at that point. The first 4 episodes were all about the Bad Batch. This new crew, apparently, of these rogue, specially modified, mutated clone troopers that were designed for special, specific, tough missions that the regular guys couldn't do, or what they called the regs. And those first 4 episodes, it's what Clone Wars is all about. Action-packed fun, absolutely breathtaking sequences and cinematography. And what was so special is that the animation was being updated after, 5 years of being dormant? Clearly there was so much they could do, even though Clone Wars was very revolutionary for the time with its CGI animation. It looked absolutely breathtaking. I think it even won an Emmy for the actual animation itself. But there's still so much they can do with it now, and it showed. Those first 4 episodes were just beautiful to look at. I was watching it again last night. The first 3 episodes of the Bad Batch story. I could watch it there were so many times that I just paused to just look in awe of the incredible planets they were showing. And it's still the great fun of Star Wars is that you can explore so many new planets, so many new cultures. It's a universe, and they showed it to the max, even with a simple, crazy story, like the story of these crazy mutated clones on a mission that would then grow larger to even find out that one of the lost characters that were believed to have been gone from the Clone Wars, that I know he came back in Rebels, but let's pretend Rebels didn't exist at this point, apparently still be alive and actually being a big part to this grand conspiracy that is happening in the Republic and the Separatist movement behind the great Darth Sidious, behind the whole plan. That Rex would soon come to find out himself, the return of Captain Rex. Oh my god, it's just, you gotta, I'm not even going into specifically the characters yet, but I might as well. Another great thing of Clone Wars is what everyone complained about the prequels when they first happened. The characters sucked, most of them aside from the main ones, Obi-Wan, Qui-Gon even, and I guess Hayden Christensen's Anakin and Padme were practically forgettable, boring, bland, or poorly written, or barely not even written at all. Clone Wars won 360 that by bringing us incredibly memorable, lovable, unique characters. This show explored how every clone practically had their own personality, and it's incredible. First 4 episodes, what an incredible intro to the return of the Clone Wars. Couldn't have asked for anything better. It honestly first had me a bit on the nose because it almost seemed like a lot of the promotion for season 7 was talking about, yes, being the season where they finally showed how the Clone Wars end, and pretty much showing the events of Revenge of the Sith, Order 66, the fall of the Jedi Temple, the fall of the Republic. Everything was going to come in place. It almost seemed like the Bad Batch part of the story was almost forgetting about all that, but as the story progressed, you notice how everything would come into connect. Everything would come to play into the grand story, and plot points that seemed small would actually be part of a bigger story that was starting to be explored in the season. So it was actually, for me, one of the most clever parts of season 7, of how it showed a small, seemingly simple story with just some simple battles that were taking place would actually play a grand event that would soon come into play by the end of the season, which, that's Star Wars at its best. Writing that seems so simple, basic, classic good versus evil can be so much more complicated, can be so much more grand, so much more epic than people could ever even have imagined. That was the first 4 episodes. Then we move on to the one that everyone agrees kinda sucked, not too much, kinda disappointing, especially the last 2 just didn't really seem to serve any purpose. That was the middle of the season. So watching them through, I could start noticing the Ahsoka episodes were possibly, and most fans agree, the weakest episodes of the season. They weren't terrible. They weren't even bad, I would say. Even the worst one that I'm going to come into, in my opinion, in a sec, would still even be considered, in my opinion, good. So the characters throughout all this, especially with it being Ahsoka, which I was more than happy to see what was happening with her while she was out of the Jedi Temple, which was something that took place a few seasons ago, if you didn't know that. But either way, to see her come back was obviously always going to be exciting, and to see her to start communicating, is that the right word? No, to start connecting with people out of the Republic, out of the big events, and to see what they felt about this grand conflict of the Clone Wars was really interesting to see within itself. And however, after the first 2 episodes of that story, things just get really weird. It almost feels like what I felt about Rebels. You remember how I mentioned at Rebels earlier? Yeah, that was going to come into play. I always loved Rebels. I thought it was a really good show. It was like a fun Saturday morning cartoon. But let's be real, guys. As much as we love Saturday morning cartoons, Ninja Turtles wasn't anything breathtaking. They weren't anything complex. They weren't anything interesting. It was just 4 turtles, clearly marketable, colorful characters that were fun, funny, and cool to watch kick ass and fight bad guys. Nothing more, nothing less. That's what I really felt that were those episodes for the last 2. I almost feel like Dave Filoni didn't write those, because they seem so out of place compared to the stuff that you would later come back to write and blow our minds for. Where my biggest complaint is that it just didn't feel like it had anything to do with the season or the greater story that they were clearly trying to explore. It almost felt like a throwaway episode or a throwaway story that we just explored to see a cool heist sequence, or see Ahsoka kick ass and fight these badass or evil bad guys, and fight these evil gangs and mob bosses that are around the galaxy. We're clearly going to explore the spice mines of Kessel. They never did. It just got thrown away. It's just more chasing, more breakout stories, more breakout prisons or prison breakouts, which is not bad at all. It's still fun, and those sequences were awesome to watch. But what was the purpose with it for the whole season? Literally by the end, she just ends up going with the Mandalorians. So it just, The Ahsoka episodes, though the first two were, in my opinion, rather great and still a great addition to the Star Wars lore, to the season 7 lore itself, it just seemed like it served no purpose by the end to the entire story. It almost felt like you could completely skip it and not really lose anything for it, because Ahsoka would still come into play in the end, and you could just assume she was on her own for a while, which in the end she really kind of was, because what did she really gain after that? So as you can tell, I clearly wasn't really that satisfied with the middle 4 episodes of the season. It almost made me feel like for a second that the Bad Batch story was just a lucky fluke and everything was going to go downhill after that. But like I said, with everything this season was, everything came back around. It would complete 360. Episode 9. Where can I start with it? After this, I think, without a doubt, before I just even start going into detail, I think most fans can agree, Episode 9 to the finale is possibly, for me, not just some of the standout episodes for the season, I think it's some of the standout episodes for the entire show itself, even in the Star Wars franchise as a whole. I think the greatest sequences, the greatest visuals, the greatest character development came in these 4 episodes. And all of it was just damn well explored by Episode 9. So again, having one final battle to possibly end this war once and for all, defeat the Sith, defeat the Separatists, bring once again order and peace to the galaxy. One last ride. We all know where this is going to end. And that's what I think is just done geniusly in these last 4 episodes. Especially the first 2. If you just watch those first 2 episodes, of the final 4, it almost seems like everything is going well. What could possibly go wrong? Yes, some people died, some tragedy happens, but aside from that, Darth Maul has been defeated. They finally free Mandalore. It seems like they're on their shit and finally seem to be knowing where Grievous is going. They seem to finally be knowing that the Emperor is actually corrupt and going to handle it. Everything seems to be coming back in place. But just like they said in Episode 10, as Darth Maul warned us, everything was going to go bad. We're all going to die. After that, everything goes to shit. In the story, not in the quality. In the best, most terrifying, and most heartbreaking way possible. The friends that we grew up with, especially me, the friends we've learned to develop feelings and relationships with throughout all these seasons and even all these years, would soon have to turn on us. Because this is the Clone Wars, not the original trilogy. There is no happy ending to this. And it could not have been explored more perfectly with these last 4 episodes. Clone Wars was the first time we watched something of this prequel story, of the prequel trilogy, that we didn't just got entertained by, we were hooked by it. We loved these characters. Anakin wasn't just a whiny, annoying brat anymore. He was this loving, charismatic, even Han Solo-like kind of character. Everybody loved and respected him, and you could believe he was the chosen one. Every time he got involved in a fight or in this epic conflict, he would win, and he would bring victory. He would bring peace to planets. He would help defeat the evil menace. He would help bring them to justice. Everything he did was a victory, so you could believe maybe this guy really was the chosen one. All these characters you would grow to love and to really care for. It just hurts so much when you finally see the ultimate downfall. Anakin falls for Emperor Palpatine, helps kill his first victim, Mace Windu, and eventually, though we don't even see all of it, we just see little hints that could sometimes be just as terrifying as the events themselves, which I actually really love that they went for. You see Order 66 take place, the Republic falls, everything that these characters fought so valiantly for, so hard for, and lost so much for, to just be crushed and to go all the way back to the beginning, even less than beginning, is just heartbreaking emotional storytelling at its finest. The show doesn't end with a happy note. It's quite somber. They don't even have the classic hopeful ending with the iconic twin suns that even happened in the prequels when Obi-Wan stares into the distance. It's just Vader throwing away the last remains of the people he once knew and loved. And I kind of really admire that. It's what I realize what I love so much about this show. As fun and crazy as the characters are, this really is some of the darkest stuff that Star Wars has ever brought to us. It's not fun. Watching, before even the new season came out and the announcement happened, I was so excited that when Disney Plus came out, I watched every damn season, or most of every damn season I could. And I realized a lot of the episodes were really dark. But you still love these characters and you understand what they're going through. But there's still their dedication to serve and fight for peace. And even the conflicts and controversy of if what they're doing is ethical. Clones are kind of like a slave army. And since they never really experienced peace, they even admit that they don't know what they're going to do once the war's over. All these questions are brought up, but it's all been expected to finally one day come into play and one day finally be over. We don't see that because that's not what the Clone Wars was supposed to be about. Instead of even seeing all our friends that we grew up with, we just see the stormtroopers and the remains of all the battles that really were for nothing in the end, at least in their time. All of it just been to dust. Clone Wars ended on the greatest low note it could have ever had. It ended on a high note when it comes to quality, but not in the story. And that's what it always should have been. And that's what I think Dave Filoni perfected by the end of this show. It wasn't happy, it was rather tragic. But there's still hope in the galaxy. That's what Clone Wars has always been about. Guys, Clone Wars Season 7 wasn't perfect all the way. Some episodes were quite disappointing, some were even rather forgettable. But throughout it, nearly every single episode had something to watch, had something worth watching. If it wasn't for the characters, it was for the great visuals. If it wasn't even for that, they had the great sequences and set pieces they had throughout every single episode to keep you by, even the worst ones. But at its best, which was most of this damn season, every episode kept you on the edge of your seats, excited for every single moment, emotional for every character that you see return, and for every character you see fall. Everything was done to its max, to its perfection, and it's just for me what Star Wars has always been about. Incredible characters in an incredibly vast universe with an incredible story. I love Clone Wars, and this time I'm going to be rating 1 out of 5. I give Clone Wars Season 7 4.5 out of 5. If the middle episodes with the Ahsoka stories were just done a little better, I would have given it more. But you know what? They weren't too terrible in the first place. Most of it was actually quite good. And you just can't deny the masterful work of the first 4 and the last 4 episodes. It's just near perfection. 4.5 out of 5. Guys, what did you think about Clone Wars Season 7? I've actually never had so much fun talking about something of Star Wars, and I've talked about the original trilogy on this channel, but it's just something I've been wanting to do, and to finally see it come to an end is a bit sad. It's something I grew up with a lot, and pretty much what got me in love with Star Wars in the first place, but everything must come to an end eventually, and I'm just so glad it ended on the best high note it possibly could have ever had. Dave Filoni, thank you so much for being part of my childhood, and I'm so proud that you got to release your final piece of masterwork on the very day of Star Wars itself. Couldn't have been a better time, couldn't have been a better event, couldn't have been told better. Thank you so much for watching. Please stay safe. Quarantine is still going through. I know there's a lot of maniacs that still think we should just open now, but guys, we gotta live to enjoy life. Don't die right now in such a stupid way. Let's enjoy it. Let's keep talking about great shows and films that we have out there. I know I'm gonna keep doing it. Thank you all for watching either way, and have a lovely day. See you guys.